Oh
Oh
yeah,
my
we have
god.
audio. Hey guys, we're here.
Oh my
Hello.
god.
It works. Okay,
No way.
it's time to switch scenes.
I
We're
guess we
in.
can. Okay, I don't.
I think
What?
we're in. Hello
Are we?
everyone.
Holy, we're in. Dear God.
We're finally
Oh
in.
my.
All right, it's time for full
Okay.
circle. A little bit late, 10, 15 minutes late. No big deal. Um, we are here for MGC recap and grand finals predictions, OWC qualifiers recap, and a round of 32 predictions. I'm Dio. I have with me T1G and Shiba for the start of this episode, and we'll later be bringing in Dada and Miles for the OWC round of 32 predictions in particular. Aaron, Shiba, good afternoon.
Hey, man. How's it going, man? What's up, man? I'm glad to be here 10 minutes late.
But we're
What's
in.
up, dog?
But we're
What's
in.
up, dog?
We're here.
We're so in. We're so back. 12 minutes in. It's time to do it. Yippee.
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and start with the mrekk Grandmaster Cup recap. A couple of really good matches to go over in this tournament. We'll do a brief semifinals recap before going into the finals. MCY4 eliminating Scroll in the losers bracket to start. Then Intercambing eliminating a Colibed, Flying Tuna eliminating Arnold, and Karcher unfortunately FFing due to scheduling issues. Thoughts on the first three matches in losers bracket there? I know it's been a couple of weeks since those have happened, but it was 7-4 for MCY4, 7-5 for Intercambing over a Colibed, and 7-3 for Flying Tuna over Arnold.
I have to go back and remember how these things happened.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Me
has
This is
been
the
a
problem
while.
with missing a week because of the OWC predictions.
Yeah. Memories don't really help when you're trying to fix your brain on something that's coming up in the future.
Intercambing versus a Colibed was
Kinda
a
hard.
good match. I know that much.
Yes.
That
Yeah,
was
a
the
really
that
good
was
match.
like the good that was one that we had talked about actually the week before. We kind of predicted because it was the like higher skill cap player versus better tournament player situation, and lo and behold, the better tournament player ended up winning.
But it was pretty close, no? I mean, it was 7-5. Colibed put up a lot of really good scores. 630K, 640K on the DT1 that week. 470K on the Nomad 4 Chirality. That's like an 8-star, 200 BPM tech map. It's pretty hard. And then also winning some points on precision, but eventually getting outdone on just kind of the gimmick well-roundedness of intercambing. A lot of wins on even stuff that maybe we wouldn't have expected, like the finger control speed DT picking bad companies, for example, for intercambing. So ended up being a pretty good match. MCY4 versus Scroll, I think, saw Scroll set actually some pretty good scores in spite of losing the match. Obviously, MCY4 with a lot of really solid scores as well. But for example, 400K on first death for Scroll, I think, is really promising for Russia's team this year. MCY4, obviously one of the best tournament players around, so no surprises that he was setting a lot of pretty good scores as well. 400K on Cuffit, 370K on Chirality, Desert Theater, 500K as well, 470K on Trust Nothing But Love. Good scores.
Yeah,
Yes.
loads and loads of maps here were decently close. I think generally there wasn't too many maps that had a gap over 100K. I think the most one-sided map was map 1 in DT3, where Scroll was completely shredded. Desert Theater as well. I think some of us maybe expected Desert Theater to be a bit of a closer one, but I maybe it just wasn't off form, but MCY4 just completely shredded, like combo especially, like whoa, completely shredded in combo game. Yeah, just winning on Desert Theater. I think DT3 was probably the more expected one because MCY has always been known to struggle a lot on these having mechanics maps, the super speedy maps. He's made like a light improvement, but I think DT3 being the most one-sided and probably being the most obvious win in this match. But outside of that, it was pretty close. There was some really good maps here.
Yeah, Scroll was like the most surprising player in this tournament for me. Both like the most or second most surprising to qualify, and then most surprising like player to reach top 8, top 12. I guess that's not that incredible when you think about it that way, but still, he actually did win a match or two at least. I don't think anybody expected that to happen as we are on the prediction screen. I'm not sure if that's what chat's seeing. Anyway, yeah, Scroll like definitely probably the.
Oh my god, there's two of me. Sorry,
two
I didn't mean
Shivas.
to
Yeah,
interrupt you.
chat is not seeing this. We're on
Okay,
the
this is in
normal.
studio mode probably. Anyway,
Yeah, this is in
Scroll
studio
definitely
mode.
like the
We're
most
good.
surprising player to me in this tournament, like doing as well as he did.
Yeah, he ended up getting in the top 12, so pretty good for him. We'll keep it moving relatively quickly through these matches because there's still the winner semifinal matches and the finals to talk about. So, want to keep this moving relatively quickly. Arnold versus Flying Tuna also happened in that round of losers bracket. It was a pretty close match, but not a lot of good scores. I think the ones worth talking about are like Arnold 530K on Fever Time, which was a pretty solid score. But a lot of the scores here were um, pretty average in comparison to a lot of the other matches. I think Flying Tuna also 400K on First Death, which is a really good score.
Arnold set a really good score on Vanity Clock as well. Like I mean, it was a 10 miss, but like 540K 760 combo. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this was just Tuna is just kind of better. Like as a well-rounded player, he just kind of flexed his skill sets, and that was
it seemed like
that.
Arnold was also sight reading that match, so classic Arnold.
Classic Arnold.
Yeah.
So not too surprising there.
Yeah. And then the FF, which is very depressing because I
Yeah.
think Karcher versus Decatur was like one of my most anticipated matches in the
Yeah.
losers bracket for that week, and
That
then
would've been
Karcher
really
is just
good.
like, see ya.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it happens. So, oh well, what can you do? The second round of losers bracket that week were both 7-3, and that was Intercambing 7-3 MCY4 and Decatur 7-3 Flying Tuna. Just from looking at some of the scores, Intercambing with 570K on Fever Time, way better than the previous match. MCY4 490K on First Death, which is really good. 600K for Intercambing on Love Colored Master Spark, which is pretty chill. That's a good score. 800K almost for MCY4 on Rondano Hen, the Hard Rock 4 that weekend, and then almost 800K for Intercamming on the DT1. So a lot of pretty good scores in that match.
Also, I think one of the coolest was like the 11K score difference on Easy Breezy.
Yeah.
But this was like Intercamming played really well this match, and I think he was just a little more comfortable in the pool. Interesting that the same kind of thing happened in both of his matches in this week, where he was up 6-2. Or 6-, or he was up like he was up by like 3 points or whatever, and ended up losing 2 points in a row, then clinching both of them. Like it was a break point and a 1 point for the other player in both of them before he was able to close it out. So it took him 3 match points in both of those matches to win. But it was still just job done. I feel like Intercamming just a little higher skill cap.
Yeah. And then Flying Tuna versus Decatur. Obviously, Decatur ending up winning that match, but Flying Tuna actually taking a 2-0 lead at the start. And
It was
being
a
up
3-1. Yeah, he was up 3-1, didn't win a single map. Yeah.
Yeah.
Decatur, pretty good. Cough. Pretty good player, by the way.
Oh my god! Not
Once
this shit
again, it's another one of those moments. Yeah, I mean, Decatur multiple times has proven how good he is at just coming back from any major deficit, whether being 3-1 down or being 6-2 down, 6-3 down, doesn't really matter. He's very stable mentally and consistently. He's really good at just making those comebacks happen, and no matter how much of a deficit you're against Decatur multiple times now, he's proven that he doesn't really falter after being at deficit. He still keeps going, and that's going to carry on into the next match that we're going to talk about later with Decatur. But on top of that, man, this loss, I think, for Flying Tuna just sucked, man. I don't know if you saw his Twitter, man, but he was devastated by that loss. I think he knew that he had a lot more potential to take Decatur to a much higher scoreline towards the ending, which is just a shame. But yeah, still the Decatur, man, completely shredding. I think there were like a few closer maps in the final like 6, but not really too many. I think the closest ones were Impulse and Desert Theater. Flying Tuna losing on Desert Theater by like what 13-14K. That's tough, bro. That's tough.
Yeah, there was also the Hidden 4 Revolution that was within 100K, but I mean, the only map that was within 50K or so was Desert Theater. So it honestly was pretty well done by Decatur to just win, honestly, somewhat convincingly on pretty much every pick after the 3-1 deficit.
Yeah, I have to agree.
Okay. Now the two interesting matches in the winners semifinals are not interesting because some of the other ones were actually very close, but the two more anticipated matchups of semifinals. We'll start with Malashevsky versus Vaxei because that one was less close. It was 7-3 for Malashevsky in this match.
And nobody was surprised.
Nobody's
just
really
saying,
Nobody was
surprised, I think.
surprised.
I think a lot of us called this. A lot
Yeah,
of us called
we
this.
pretty much universally predicted. I think we had a couple people predict this exact score. I'm pretty sure I said 7-3 if memory serves. I don't want to I don't want to. I think that's what I said. Malashevsky's just better at this point. I'm sorry. Like Vaxei barely plays tournaments anymore, and Malashevsky plays every tournament you can find, and his skill cap is ridiculous. His consistency is ridiculous. Like this was not a shock to anybody who knows what's going on. People like to talk about, oh my god, the Vaxei streak, you guys, oh my but like he's played like 5 tournaments in 3 years, man. I'm sorry, he just he has not evolved to the tier that he would need to make this match more competitive, and Malashevsky just flexed his muscle and proved that he's the better player.
Honestly, the clip from last week of you getting really upset about the streak thing was gold, absolute gold. I think the only one who still had the hopium for Vaxei was Miles. Outside of that, I think most of us still stayed like predicting and thinking, Ristal's just better. Like my mindset was that if Vaxei is being taken to TB against 2 players who are very, very good, but not, in my eyes, not close to the tier of Malashevsky, what the hell is he going to do against Malashevsky when that time comes? And I mean, I think loads of us saw it coming. Malashevsky just overall is so much better. Vaxei still outshined him on a couple maps, I believe, in aim. Specifically,
the Nomad one, Vaxei did really well, and
DT1 as well.
The love colored Master Spark was just who can like fucking double tap or mash better, because it was like 90 act to 89 act, so that one's kind of whatever.
And there's an ending to the map where there's just ridiculous like super fast burst stamina towards the very end, where if you've played throughout the whole map, your stamina's already low, that's going to lead to a lot more chain misses. So yeah, I think the maps that we expected Vaxei to do well on were kind of obvious, but outside of that, Russell was just way more consistent, just won the whole thing straight up.
Also, shout outs to Malashevsky S ranking Impulse Hard Rock in a match.
Yeah, that is wild.
That was messed up.
I mean, a lot of people talk about the streak ending and all that. It is the end of the win streak. Yes, factually, this is the first tournament match that Vaxei has lost in however many years.
He hasn't lost the tournament yet.
He
has a match, but he hasn't lost the tournament yet.
He has lost matches.
Hold on, can I finish, please? Yeah. Still the first match that he has lost since however long ago. So people are going to talk about the streak ending, but I wanted to agree with what you were saying earlier, which is why I said, please let me finish. That, the streak isn't all that important anymore. He didn't play a single tournament throughout 2022. The last time he played a tournament was 2021. So this had to end at some point. And if somebody who hasn't played a tournament in 2 years comes back to play more tournaments, you're going to expect them to be pretty rusty and not even up to the standards that they would have set for themselves when they were in their prime anyway. And even in 2021, honestly, Vaxei was still not really as motivated as he once was. Like the only big tournaments that he played were Yuki Aim and Drenched Program, if memory serves, and it was just those 2, I think. Obviously, he didn't play OWC. Played Perennial that year, but that was earlier in the year. So there were only a couple of tournaments that he actually ended up playing that year. So I think this has been a long, long time coming for the win streak of matches to finally end. And if semifinals is anything to go off of, then the tournament win streak will also be ending pretty soon, because the 2 players we have, aside from Vaxei in Grand Finals weekend, are both pretty strong. But that's a conversation for another time. Anything else to add on this match before we go on to the other semis winners match?
Malashevsky good.
Malashevsky good. I think that's all. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Zudi versus Enri, the other semifinals winners bracket match. This one was a lot closer. It was 7-5. Almost went to tiebreaker, except for a single break point in the last 3 picks from Enri. and lots of really close scores within 100K or so. Desert Theater within 26K. One missed choke for Henry on Hard Rock 4. Otherwise, it would have been an act difference on that map, for example, to win the point. And a lot of similar skill sets between the two for what they were picking into later on into the match.
I think it was a really big. Sorry, I just real quick. I think it was a really big turning point.
Go for it.
I think it was a really big turning point that Zudi lost Hidden One, because that's like one of the skill sets that she's been best known for years now. And then she lost that and proceeded to lose Hidden 2 and DT1, and the match was just over. And I think the DT1 was her own last pick, if memory serves. So she lost her 2 last picks, which were Hidden 1, which she never should lose to pretty much anyone. And Henry was just better. And then she lost DT1, which I still don't know why she picked. I forget what other maps were left up at that point. But like, if she wins that Hidden 1, the match looks a whole lot different, because it's 5-4 her instead of 4-5 down. So who knows? Or no, it would be something like that. Anyway, and so it's just like, if that pick goes differently, that could have changed the entire match.
I think the only other maps that were left for Zudi were not really in a favor outside of Impulse. And I think that was one thing that other people were thinking of, was that the last map that Zudi could have picked in that time was Impulse, and that was probably a thought that a lot of people had. But DT1 is still like not too bad of an issue. It's kind of a very simple DT1 with super speedy burst, which is kind of the only thing you can really see Zudi potentially missing on. But I could have probably seen a reality where she could have picked Impulse and maybe gotten win off it. I mean, it is kind of techie consistency, but considering it's Hard Rock, I mean, Zudi's very comfortable on decent higher CS. Precision has been one of her super strong skill sets. I think she could have leaned into that and maybe got a win, but it didn't happen, I'm afraid. I'm pretty sure it was Impulse. Did Emery ban that? No, Emery banned Nomad 1. I remember this.
Impulse was left open, and Hidden 4 Revolution was left open at the end.
Yeah, no, there's no way you'd pick Hidden 4 into Henry.
To be fair, she won Hidden 3 into
tech,
Henry, so I actually don't think it would have been bad, because the maps are similar enough. But honestly, with how the finals weekend went, I think it was probably better for the tournament overall that Zudi unfortunately ended up losing there, because she ended up forfeiting versus Intercambing in the losers bracket in finals to get us moving on to the next weekend and moving the broadcast along a little bit. She ended up forfeiting due to being in TwitchCon. So if she had won, she would have forfeited winners finals then been in losers bracket finals the week afterwards, which I don't know, that's kind of lame. Winners finals forfeit is not great. So well, I don't want to say I'm glad Zudi lost for the overall tournament. Kind of am. It's a little weird, right? But
I wonder,
it's not against Zudi. It's because of the fact that she FF'd after. It's not.
Exactly.
I wonder why it is that they were able to get setups for OWC qualifiers, but not to just also play a match, because like she was matched up against Intercambing, which means the times would have been fine.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Canada,
that's kind of confusing to me.
11th seed in
Canada also ran it down.
Tech difficulties during the during their TwitchCon setups, so I don't think it would have been a particularly good match anyway.
Okay, but here's what I'm thinking. Like, MGC has such a ginormous prize pool. Surely you would at least take an hour of your time to at least try, knowing that you might still struggle. I don't know. That's my thought. Granted, I don't know Zudi exactly her full circumstances, but considering she was playing qualifiers, I know she wouldn't throw away OWC qualifiers because it's OWC, it's the US World Cup, but MGC still has a giant prize pool. I thought she would be at least willing to give it a shot and hope she got lucky or something like that. Because getting top 3 in a tournament like this is ginormous, and you can get a giant prize pool from that and make the most of it at TwitchCon while you can. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
my thoughts are that partying in Vegas is way better than playing OSU. So
I mean, true.
That's probably what I would do.
My other thought is that we had 2.5 really good matches that take precedence over whether or not Zudi should have played. So
so let's keep moving on.
So guys, Vaxay Decaton, guys,
it went to tiebreaker.
Guys,
I don't know. This is like the biggest. This is like one of the biggest fuck yous I've seen to team selection in quite a long time. regardless of whether excluding Decatur in the favor of rounding out the team's overall skill sets was the right choice or not. I think there's a very clear case for why he should have been on the team as in order to add more all-rounder depth at high skill cap, aka grand finals, and largely based off the tiebreaker match that he had against Vaxei, where there were I don't know how many maps that were within 50k of each other, starting with Nomad 1 and then DT4 and then also DT3 right afterwards, and then winning
Nomad
Nomad 4
1.
Tech against Vaxei, for example. Like there's a lot of really, really close maps in this match, and at a high 8-star pool level, that's really saying something about just how good you can be on a sort of tournament like this.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't want to go back to that discussion again. So all I'll say is the the USA OWC team people have some fucking apologizing to Decatur to do, and have some goddamn explaining to do, especially after what happened in qualifiers, which we'll talk about when we get there. Because this, like you said, this match was like Decatur's biggest possible fuck you. Playing like that on a ridiculous this pool is harder than OWC Grand Finals will be. And he just went absolutely nuclear on it. So yeah. I mean, okay, we haven't mentioned Vaxei at all because like he ended up winning whatever, and also the tiebreaker was incredibly so very not rigged at all. Definitely not rigged for Vaxei. But yeah, good performance from Vaxei. But wow, like just the fuck you of a lifetime from Decatur.
Yeah. In my defense, when we pulled the tiebreaker, neither Vaxei nor Rectigon nor Henry nor Malashevsky's scores existed on the map when I put that on the sheet. The only score that was there was the intercamming and mrekk scores. They were already on the leaderboard. So in my defense, those scores didn't exist before. But
speaking of
being very Vaxei favored in this match in particular.
Yeah.
That said, Decatur does still have the number 16 score on the leaderboard, so I think it was partly both Vaxei popping off, like second highest combo on the map in match is not something you do even if you have a leaderboard score on the map most of the time. And Decatur honestly having a kind of rough time on the map, worse accuracy, worse miscount, worse combo, etc. than his run on the map online.
Listen, man. 4 out of the 12 maps that were played were over 100k. Every single other map were less than 100k, probably even less than that, to be honest. So it is very safe to say, like, Decatur fucking fought for his life, bro. He fought for his life. And TB, we've learned our lesson already, man. Vaxei is just completely unsolvable on TB. 1500 combo on Ghost Halloween Remix is just it's just completely ridiculous. I don't really know how else I can say that. But outside of that, man, Decatur fought for his life, bro. The first 6 maps were insanely close, dude. So yeah, man, great performance from Decatur. Great way to end his run of the tournament, because God, he made a great case for himself, man. Truly.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we've said what we wanted to say about that match. Vaxei did end up winning. He went on to face Intercamping, who would have played Zudinator had she been able to play last weekend. And the exact same result ended up happening again. Another Vaxei match, another tiebreaker in loser's bracket. 7-6 for Vaxei, but a lot of, again, very, very good scores for Intercamping. Actually beating Vaxei on his first pick, going up 2-0 with the Nomad 6, and then staying up the break point until Bitter Chocolate Striker later on into the match, when Vaxei got
that
650k after
dude.
getting like 300k the day before or something like that. That was demonic. And then it was again Vaxei to go up match point after that, Intercamping to match the match point, and then you don't often beat Vaxei in tiebreaker. So
no, but if anyone was gonna beat Vaxei on this tiebreaker, it was very nearly Intercamping. He was up for a lot of this map. He spent like the middle third or so, if not more, of this tiebreaker in the lead on it. And that's after clutching up on the Nomad 3, and that's after winning on the Hidden 2 by 11k. I feel like this was just one of the closer matches. I mean, it was, again, much like the Decatur match, just balanced on the knife side. You had 2k Nomad 1, you had 6k Hard Rock, was it 4? You had 2K Hard Rock 1, and then Vaxei nearly FCing. I think the weirdest play of this entire match to me was the DT1, where Vaxei went from like 300k or 400k or something to 913k overnight. And that's actually why he was able to take it to tiebreaker, considering Intercamming won the next 2 maps after that. But yeah, and then the tiebreaker, Vaxei just kind of last second comeback. He's what's that, 4-0 now on tiebreakers in this tournament? That's kind of messed up.
Yep. So I think we're done with losers bracket. Let's keep it moving because we are a little bit behind.
Yeah.
We're gonna go on to the winners finals, which is Malashevsky versus Henry. Malashevsky ended up winning this match. I believe it was
7-4.
7-4.
7-4.
Yeah.
And this match was at 8 a.m., so I did not get to see it.
Yeah, this was also a pretty good match. You had Henry winning on speed, winning on DT generally, but losing the breakpoint on DT1, and then losing another breakpoint on Nomad 3 and Hidden 1 later on into the match, but still able to win stuff like the Nomad 6 and Hidden 2. So actually better on reading and better generally on DT and high approach rate reading than Malashevsky, but Malashevsky abusing Hard Rock and being able to get a much higher average score on stuff like Nomad 3, Nomad 4, Hidden 4, right? So it's really tough to beat Malashevsky on those types of maps. And even for Henry, who's thought of as one of the best tournament players right now in the world, and rightfully so, still pretty hard. Big gaps in average score was kind of the thing to go off in finals. Malashevsky averaged 627,000 score on the 11 maps that he and Henry played. Henry averaged 560k, which is still 100,000 higher score than Vaxei averaged in his best match last weekend.
Yeah.
So, pretty good.
If you look at the scores from this match, it's pretty obvious like that these two players are just the best two players in this tournament, and it's really not particularly close. I mean, we like flipped out about Vaxei's Bitter Chocolate Striker 650k.
Dude,
Henry got 625k and lost it by 200k. Malashevsky got 823k on Bitter Chocolate Striker. Like, they're just so much better. And let's see, they both got 950k, 970k on Hard Rock 1, 584 to 506k on Hidden 2, which I think Vaxei and Intercamming got like 200k on. These two guys are just on another level right now, and I am pretty certain that this is going to be the rematch in the grand finals, because playing like this, I don't see Vaxei beating Henry.
Yeah,
go on, Dio.
There were 15. There were 15 maps played uniquely in the finals, and 5 of them had the best score set by neither Malashevsky or Henry. Malashevsky set 6 of the best scores. Henry set 4 of them. Everyone else combined set 5 of the best scores on these maps. So 10 out of 15 were either these two players in the winners finals. They're pretty good. And I know we want to talk about this match more, but like we have to move on. So the grand finals predictions. Let's take a look at the losers bracket finals. It is Henry versus Vaxei. Thoughts on how this matchup plays out and final scores?
Vaxei wins on aim. Henry wins literally everything else, and it's like 7-3, much like it was against Malashevsky. I don't really see a world where there's many other skill sets that are favored to Vaxei in this matchup the way he's currently playing and the way Henry's currently playing.
Yeah, I basically have to disagree. The only thing I can maybe add to that is that Vaxei maybe has a good chance on speed, but not too much. I mean, I know Henry's
it's
good,
literally not close.
Oh, you think so? Okay.
Yeah,
fine,
it's literally not. I'm sorry to just shut that down, but it's literally not close. Like, Henry got 681k, 98 AC last week on Gigantic OTNDT, just for instance. Like, sorry, it's not close.
Yeah, it's
I'm taking a look at the other maps. I'm taking a look at the other maps to see if there's anything that Vaxei could take over outside of aim.
Just Hard Rock in general, honestly.
He loses reading, he loses low AR, he loses speed, he loses hidden. He
generally aim and Hard Rock is the only thing that he's got an edge over.
He probably loses tech, depending. I don't remember. I'm to be honest, I haven't looked at this pool yet because I only have the one match to cast. But like, I'm pretty sure Henry is just going to be better at the tech stuff too. Like, and Henry is probably even better at like precision stuff, or at least as good. It's just I don't know. I don't see it.
I mean, Vaxei is a lot stronger on the kind of kind of tapping-ish mechanics heavy tech, whereas this one is very slider aim, very slider control heavy. So that's very clearly something that's in Emery's favor. But there's really nothing else. Okay, you can make a case for Hard Rock 1, and you can maybe take a case for Hard Rock 4, but that's iffy still. Yeah, I'm suspecting Emery to just completely shred this outside of maybe AIM, where even then it's contested. Emery's still getting some really good scores on last week's Hard Rock 1, for example. Makes a case for Emery even being able to win AIM maps overall.
I would say Vaxe
So,
got like 530 and 550k on last week's Hard Rock 1, and Emery got what 950k,
900k, yeah, 950k.
Okay, and I'm just gonna say
What
this.
do you do?
This is gonna be the last thing I have to say on just like this tournament matter, because, or at least other than grand finals, but like, this is gonna sound kind of doomer, but I think the tournament scene has kind of passed Vaxe by in his long absence. Everybody else has continued to improve, and he's been gone, and so he hasn't. And so the stuff that he was good at and winning before, everybody else has caught up and exceeded him. And that's just how it is. If you don't play, you can't improve, and other people are going to pass you by.
You still have to get a little bit of respect because he has made top 3. So that's still a respectable thing. But you have to imagine with the Zudi FF, would he have made top 3 if Zudi stayed? I don't think so.
That would have been an interesting match stylistically, but it didn't happen, so it doesn't matter.
Still though, like getting top 5 in this tournament is still very impressive. But it's very clear that he's no longer the top dog. He isn't the king anymore. He was undisputedly the king in 2020, and before that, he was arguably the king in 2021. 2022, he wasn't playing. But this year, like finally, like the big, like long-standing era that has been Vaxe's dominance is fading away, and players like Emery, Mashevsky, Zunida, and other players that are soon gonna start on the come up even more, they're just gonna start outshining him. Like I think this is probably like the end of an era for a player like this. I mean, still getting top 5 is impressive, but if we were to see this in 2020 with similar players, Vaxe would have completely destroyed it. He's just fallen the distance. He's too far behind now. Yeah.
We are at 35
we're way
minutes
farther
in,
behind.
and we were supposed to finish with this 10 minutes ago. So let's call it here. Thank you. And I'm going to make the last one pretty quick. It's going to be Malashevsky versus Henry. We're all in agreement that Vaxe probably loses this match in losers bracket finals. And we have already seen Malashevsky versus Henry once in winners finals. It was 7-5. I think our general consensus is probably that this is going to be close, but that it is going to be a Malashevsky win based off of how much more well-rounded he can be on some of the hard rocks and some of the no mods in this pool. Very similar pool to what we saw in finals. Do we have anything pressing to add about that sort of prediction, like 7-4, 7-5 for Malashevsky over Henry in grand finals? I'm kind of assuming here that that's what the predictions are going to be.
Yeah, I think this goes much the same way. I think it's not going to have changed in 1 week's time.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. Yeah, no, that's it. All I was thinking is that higher skill cap pool, maybe Henry outshines on a few other maps, but that's it. I think I still think Malashevsky
Let's
wins.
move on to the qualifiers recap then for OWC. I don't know if we actually have any graphics for this.
I will link the sheet in chat at least so people can look at the sheet.
That sounds good. We don't have graphics for this. Okay.
We don't have graphics. We were supposed to, but it happens.
Oh well, it happens. Let's take a look at the qualifier results. Again, we're going to go through these a little bit more quickly. Yes, we started 10 minutes late, but also we are 10 minutes behind even counting that, so or even adjusting for that. So I'm going to go a little bit more quickly through this. 33 through 57, I think just counting up from the bottom, it's not all that surprising to see most of these teams where they land. I think the more surprising one is like Czechia at number 44. Estonia a little ways. Actually, not Estonia, sorry. Czechia at 44 I think is surprising. I expected them to place higher. And then some people might call Israel, Malaysia not qualifying surprising. Denmark and Belgium not qualifying surprising. I think that's most of the teams that I would say I'm surprised about their placement. I didn't expect Czechia to qualify, but I expected them to place higher. And I expected Denmark and Belgium to qualify this year over Argentina, Kazakhstan. So yeah, thoughts on how the qualifiers went?
I think
Kazakhstan 32nd. Yippee! Let's go. That's
Well,
it. That's
we'll
my
get
only
to that,
take.
but
Continue.
bottom 33 to
Whoa.
bottom, right?
Yeah, I think we talked during the OWC like predictions stream about how close something like 28 through 36 or so was going to be, like those bottom 8 to 10 teams were always going to be super super close. I'm a little surprised that Hungary placed above a couple of the teams they placed above, like Belgium, Uruguay, Estonia, Austria. Sad to see Israel not qualifying. Obviously, they've got a lot of factors going on. Surprised at Malaysia 33rd. Their roster has kind of taken a nosedive over the past few years, and they still managed to perform, almost well enough to get in. But yeah, the like first, I don't know, first 6 out or so were always going to be a bad beat. It was always going to suck because it's like 1 or 2 maps. Getting a little bit better scores would have made the difference. And it's just, kind of a shame that that's how it's going to go no matter what you do. But yeah, those like 8 to 10 teams were always going to be super contested. So it's a shame to see some of those teams not make it, but none of them are really like out and out surprising. I think it was always, most of these teams were like, they might make it in and they might not. I'm not 100% like, oh my God, I can't believe this team didn't make it, so much as, darn, it's a shame, but I'm not surprised.
Shiba, anything on the bottom teams who did not qualify?
Not outside of what you've already said. I think there are a few teams like Israel and Denmark that I think could have qualified. Malaysia, despite having a roster dip, could have made it. But outside of that, that's it. I'm just happy Kazakhstan qualified, man. That's it. That's it.
And we can
for
talk
me.
about them now. Seeds 25 through 32. We'll move on to those. In order from the bottom up: number 32 Kazakhstan, number 31 Argentina, number 30 Thailand, number 29 Netherlands, number 28 Mexico, 27 Spain, 26 Taiwan, and 25 Turkey. I had some surprises in here based off of kind of what I expected the placements to be overall, but I think the biggest thing for me is New Zealand not being in this tier, and Finland not being in this tier. Both of them being a tier up, and actually Taiwan being down here is a little bit more surprising to me. And obviously, and Thailand, actually. Taiwan and Thailand being moved down. And of course, Argentina and Kazakhstan qualifying is really cool. Kazakhstan, I think, didn't play their qualifiers either last year or the year before. So for them to go from that to qualifying is really awesome. And Argentina is one of those teams that I think was on the fence for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think I had the New Zealand like 16 through 20 or 17 through 24, so I was on that one. Taiwan, is this is probably their worst seeding ever, right? Like, I
Definitely
heard
one of them. Yeah.
I heard some discussions of like a little discontent behind the scenes. Noriko has had some insight on their team's back end not necessarily being the greatest, but it's still surprising to see them all the way down at 26 for a country that's historically been like a top 12, top 16 team, all the way down at 26. But they're going to be like possibly dangerous in the bracket. Other than that, I think again, like the edges of the tiers are always going to be super close. I will stand by my opinion that I think Thailand kind of inted their roster. I think they should be better than 30th. But other than that, nobody in this tier is like super duper surprising to me personally.
Yeah, nothing too crazy for me here. As I basically the same thing that Dio mentioned. I was expecting New Zealand to place a little bit lower. I was like, yeah, that's kind of it really. I haven't got anything else to say. Taiwan, unfortunate loss for their roster. I still think they could have done a lot better regardless of that, even if their roster took a big dive. But yeah, outside of that, nothing too crazy for me.
Okay. Move on to the next tier, which is the 17-24 kind of tier of qualifying teams. 24th Ukraine, 23rd Sweden, 22 Norway, 21 Singapore, 20 Finland, 19 New Zealand, 18 Brazil, and 17 Japan. I remember while we were doing the predictions, a lot of people in chat were saying Japan should be higher on our tier list, but lo and behold, Japan is actually 17th in qualifiers. I'm not super surprised about a lot of the rest of these results. I think New Zealand was always going to be one of the better 25-32 teams when they did qualify. But I am a little surprised at Finland being moved up, obviously with Thailand and Taiwan being in the 25 to 32 tier. I think those are my surprises for this sort of order in qualifiers, but I think for the most part, these teams are not too surprising in terms of where they place.
Yeah, it's again a situation where there are a bunch of teams competing for kind of the same tiers, and this shook out about as I would have expected. I think. Really, I'm not surprised by anyone in this tier personally. Yeah, I mean, you could switch around the placements a little bit, maybe. But yeah, this just seems pretty right for most of these teams. I don't think any of this is a surprise, and I think these are all pretty fair compared to like our assessments of the skill levels of these teams.
I think the only thing that I maybe would have expected different is for Norway to be higher and for Brazil to be lower. But outside of that, no crazy surprise. I think Norway's roster is really, really good this year. I was expecting them to get top 16. Kind of similar tiers to teams like Italy and Hong Kong and France. Feel free to disagree on that, but I personally thought that Norway could have gotten a lot higher. This team's really, really good in my eyes, but lo and behold, they got 22nd. But I still think they're going to be demons in bracket. Outside of that, though, nothing too crazy. I think this is decently fair outside of Norway.
Yeah. GN didn't play qualifiers, so I think they will do better in bracket stage, but they got a pretty unlucky matchup in Canada in round of 32. So I don't know that having GN is going to matter all that much for
That's
round of 32.
not fair.
Unluckily for Norway. They have pretty bad bracket luck. I'm not going to lie. Last year, their bracket was pretty rough too. Yeah.
That's just not fair, man.
Yeah. All right, moving on to the next tier. This is a tier of just 4 teams. 16 through 13 is China, France, Italy, and Hong Kong in that order. Yeah, this is a team where honestly, I think this is mostly unsurprising. I think I had China, Indonesia swapped on my own tier list, but I don't see that as much of a surprise, honestly speaking. Like, Indonesia's a very, very good team. And they placed 9-12 last year, so not super surprising that they ended up placing higher than that. I don't know. I'm not super surprised by these placements either. I think Hong Kong 13 is a little bit of a surprise to me. I would have expected like China or France to do better than both Hong Kong and Italy, but that's how it worked out.
I have to agree. Yeah, I have to agree. I'm a little surprised with some teams like China, Japan, France, all of them getting higher than Romania. I know Romania are a great tournament team,
These are lower than what?
They are lower than Romania.
No, they're lower as in I think they should have been higher. That's what I meant. I think Romania should be just a little lower. Outside of that, like, no, I kind of agree with Dio, everything Dio said. Sorry, I didn't mean to confuse you guys. I was just saying that I think some of these teams could have been a little bit higher, but yeah.
I think I'm surprised that Italy is ahead of France, China, and Japan specifically. I know Japan not in this tier, but I did not have Italy pegged as being this good.
Italy got the all-rounders, man.
I don't know what
roster.
I don't know what
it matters so much. It matters so much in a tournament like this, right? Being able to have a couple of really good all-rounders who can just play everything, and you can build a roster around filling in for specific types of maps to join the all-rounders. It's really, really powerful.
Yeah, and then I don't know what to make of this year's France team. France is always such a freaking coin flip, man. Every year, you just never know. But I mean, you know, this team, other than me like not knowing the Italy players, I guess this tier is fine. Like, you could reshuffle it around a little bit, but it's generally fine.
All right. On to 12 through 9, Romania, Canada, Chile, and Indonesia.
Well,
obviously the big upset here is Canada seed 11, which I think a lot of people were very, very surprised about.
Chile, by TwitchCon.
Thanks, TwitchCon.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Vegas
Chile, Romania, I had in
everything.
this tier. I don't think Chile, Romania are surprising. I think Romania is still going to be really good, even though they lost Nanoya. And that is what I said on first last week also, but yeah, them proving it. They're still top 12 this year. Chile as well, top 12 again. Indonesia doing better than what I expected, and Indonesia is definitely got a really good roster this year. Lifeline is playing for them this year, and they still have a lot of their kind of tournament mainstays. Skydiver coming back is also really interesting, though I don't think it ended up mattering or like I don't think he was a core player for Indonesia in the qualifiers. Their biggest performer was Rowe at number 21. So they had some other players who were kind of their core roster for qualifiers, but it's cool to see Skydiver back. Yeah, not super surprising outside of like Canada for me.
Yeah,
in this
Canada getting their worst seeding I think ever. Also, to me, the fact that all 4 of these teams seated below the one team directly above this tier is surprising to me.
Yep. Yeah. That was the team where we all kind of agreed, right? Biggest question mark of the tournament, and it all depends on how well the question mark players perform, and they can only go up from where we initially placed them. So, Shiba, anything else to add about the Canada incident, or we move on to the team we were just talking about?
No, got nothing else to add really. TwitchCon got rid of their 2 strongest players and most well-rounded players, so of course they're going to be nerfed a little bit.
TwitchCon killed Norway. Rip Norway. On to 7-8. UK as number 8 and Australia as number 7. I actually had Australia as 5-6, so this is in my eyes a little bit of an underperformance from Australia. I think they could have done better. But UK at number 8, we had them 9-12 in the prediction stream, and this was the team where when we were talking about it, it's like, yeah, this is the biggest question mark of OWC, and 9-12 is probably a reasonable lowball estimate of where they will go, and it only depends on how well they're able to perform. They can just only go up from there. So, not too far up. Granted, they are number 8, and I think with Canada trolling the qualifiers, it would have been no surprise to see them at number 9. But they ended up number 8, which is really cool for this UK roster of pretty much all new UK players, with the exception of like Rudge, Bubbleman, Malteser, right?
Yeah, being top 8 is really important. I feel it means you're basically guaranteed to get a quote unquote easy first round matchup most of the time, unless something really weird happens at the bottom end. So it's really, really important. I think again, there is a specific team that I'm looking at that is above these teams that kind of is the reason they're 7-8 instead of like Australia getting 5-6, for instance. That I'm pretty surprised by. But yeah, UK. I don't know. I had UK 9-12. I had Australia 5-6. So it's like a little bit off both ways.
Yep.
But I mean, at the end of the day, like when it comes down to this tier, like the margins are so slim. Also, notice the percent max difference between these teams is like 0.3, and then it's 0.3 between the next 4 teams combined. So like clearly there was a bit of a gap there between UK and between everybody above them, but they managed to be better than the teams behind them. Also, UK versus Indonesia percent max difference of literally 0.02.
Average score difference of minus 23k in favor of Indonesia.
Yeah, literally one map is the difference in there.
Just a fun fact about that. I looked at why UK's average score was lower than Indonesia's. When I was doing my pick'ems, I spent like 3 hours just looking at the qualifier scores. Hidden 1, Hidden 2. UK was number 1 on Hidden 2 by 350k or so, and they were number 2 on Hidden 1. And then if you search United Kingdom on the sheet, the best they did on any other map was number 8.
Oh,
so they were either number 1, number 2, or 8 and below on every single map.
And they still got 8th overall.
And they still got 8th overall. So
that really makes you question the seeding method a little, man. I don't know. That seems a little sus. That's a little sus.
To be fair, the worst that they got on a map, the worst placement they got was number 17. So, like, they're still top 16 on all but one map in the pool. Like, they were a very consistently good team, but the 2 standout scores are why their average score was lower, because those give you a lot more percent max sum points than, for example, getting, 5th on a lot of maps, right?
Their Hidden 2 score is fucked up. It's 400k better
really
than the next best.
Yeah.
First on that map by a gap of 300k. That's nuts.
Also, like, I know that this isn't the place or time, but like, this qualifier's hidden pool was way too fucking hard.
Hidden 1 was way too hard, yeah.
This qualifier's hidden pool was way too I mean, there was literally not a single score over 2.7 mil on Hidden 1 and 1 score over 2.8 mil on Hidden 2. I think it was a little too hard.
Yeah,
anyway.
Tad difficult.
Yeah, anyway.
Okay. On to they have very good scores. Like, that's the whole point of why they're in their placement. Okay, on to 5-6 Germany at number 6 and Philippines at number 5. Philippines doing really well. I have them 7 through 8. Germany, it's Germany has finally started to lose the
Germany fell off.
luster.
Germany
Yeah,
fell off.
Germany has finally
Germany fell
fallen
off.
off a little bit. They are now
Dude,
number 6. I had them at 4th, but honestly, with how
I
strong
think
some of the other teams are, I think it's gonna be hard to do.
What came to mind, what I thought about this team is that they've got too many mechanics players. That's what I was thinking with this team. You can disagree with me, but I was thinking like this team is not going to be well run enough to do well on the late stage. Like I think they've got way too many mechanics players. Like it's still stacked and they still have some good names, but there are too many good hard rock, aim, and speed players. There are not enough more well-rounded tech players. There's not enough hidden players. There's not enough general flexible freemo players. There's not enough of that. There's too much mechanics on this team. That's what I was thinking, which didn't surprise me why they placed so low.
I think there's multiple teams that are kind of like that though. Like the United States kind of overspec into speed, and Germany has always been a mechanics team. So I don't know. It kind of just is what it is. Like that's the player base that they have available to them. I don't know. I had Germany kind of top 4 just by default because they've been so good for the last like 5 years or 4 years. So I don't know. They dropped down slightly. Philippines a little better than expected, mostly because, or I shouldn't say mostly, at least partially because Henry is like actually Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean that dude's just really, really, really fucking good. Yeah, I don't know. Not surprised again. Like much like the 7-8, not really too surprised by this, and this still hasn't touched on the team that I'm thinking of as to why I was talking about Australia the way I was. So
yeah, I think Philippines is generally pretty well rounded. They have a very good DT roster. They were top 7 on all 3 DT maps. High variance on the hard rock, but that's kind of the nature of precision hard rock maps, right? Okay hidden team and okay nomad team. Top 7 on nomad 1, 3, 4. It's just nomad 2 they struggled with. Germany, I think, is interesting to talk about because they do have a lot of good mechanics players. Like their best map was Hard Rock 1, where they were first seed, and they were number 5 on DT2, for example. But then their third best map is Nomad 3 out of qualifiers, which was like primarily alt secondary tech sort of map. And then their fourth best map was Hidden 2, where they were number 6 on the map. And then we go back to the Hard Rock pool. So it's kind of interesting. Like they do have some of those better gimmick players, but generally speaking, you're right. It's a lot of good mechanic scores as the reason why Germany is placed relatively high. Notably, only 1 DT map out of 3 were they number 8 or higher. They were number 9 on DT3 and number 12 on DT1, which is not what you usually expect out of this roster. I think it's a very different Germany team from what we're used to, with more so speed mechanics and hard rock mechanics than like DT aim mechanics being a thing for this team. Just a kind of interesting note about them. All right, on to number 4. It's Russia. Huge performance from Russia in the qualifiers. They did really, really well. They, I think, overperformed expectations a lot. I don't want to say it's a team overperformance because you never know what the practice scores are like, but I think the expectations were for them to be around like 5, 6, or 7, 8s, and they were 1 or 2 tiers higher than that, depending on how you look at it. Number 2 on Nomad 2, number 1 on DT3, which was a really, really good team score from them, almost 3.8 million.
Yep. Aaron, you got anything else? Oh, wait, is Aaron dead? What happened to Aaron? Oh, he's gone.
He is. He disappeared for 1 sec.
Okay.
So yeah, this is the team that Aaron
Yeah.
was talking about as to why Australia was a tier lower than we kind of expected them to be. Right, they are number 7, and Russia being number 4 means that Australia cannot be in top 6. So Australia getting knocked out of top 6 a little bit by Russia here, but Russia deserving the spot. They did this in spite of getting number 19 on Hidden 2 and number 14 on DT2. Like, this is a Russia team that has a lackluster speed roster in comparison to what we usually expect out of them, right? Usually you see Russia and you think, oh yeah, speed team, hard rock team. Not really. They had a high AR reading team and a stream mechanics team, but aside from that, it's well-roundedness on hard rock and well-roundedness on the Nomad pool, with number 5 and 6 on Nomad 3 and 4 really helping them out here, and number 6 on Hidden 1, which is not usually the mod where you expect Russia to do all that well.
Russia's always bad at hidden, dude. What is that?
Yeah, but number 5,
yeah.
2.5 million team score on, or number 6, excuse me,
Number
2.5
6, yeah.
million team score on in one.
Yeah.
Really good score.
No, I just didn't. I feel like this happens every year, though. It's like Russia just puts people on and then they do well, but like I didn't expect them to get 4th, man. Like I don't know. I just didn't expect them to get 4th. I thought they'd be top 8, but I didn't think they'd be 4th.
I mean, the bracket is yet to happen, right? Chile was number 4 in qualifiers in OWC 2020-21. And we all remember how that went. So,
yeah, you would know, Neil. You would know.
Yeah, I would know. Only top 24 for Chile that year. Let's hold our horses until Russia actually plays some matches. Why don't we? But nonetheless, it looks very, very good for Russia out of qualifiers.
Yeah, this is one of their best years yet, man. This is one of the best years yet. They've got a giant roster upgrade. Just generally, their core players have massively improved. I'm super excited for what this Russian team can do. I think 100% one of their biggest years yet. Cannot wait. But we should probably move on to number 3.
Yeah.
Poland.
Number 3.
Sorry, no,
number
it's the
3
United
is not
States.
Poland, brother.
It is the United States at number 3. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong sheet. It's the United States in number 3.
First time ever not getting number 1 in qualifiers. They've been number 1 in what was it, 4 years or 5 years straight that they've been qualifiers.
Since 2019 or 2018, whenever they introduced them. Yeah,
2019. Yeah, this is a pretty big deal, man.
Bro, it should have been Decaden. I don't care. It should have been Decaden.
Look, we've made that very clear.
USA is 3rd seed because they got 16th on Hard Rock 2, guys. What do you think Decaden would have done better than their filler player for that one? I don't know. Call me crazy. That's literally the only map that they did that badly. And like, yeah, they got 11th on DT1, but DT1 had like 11 teams get 4.2 mil or better. I mean, that's just a stupidly overly easy map. I've never seen. I think Australia's DT1 score is the highest team score I've ever seen in a 4v4. I don't think I've ever seen a 4.7. Is it normalized? 4.7 million. I guess that's possible. Everybody has to get 1.2 mil.
Their score was mrekk SS and everyone else 99.83 AC full combo. That was their team score.
100, isn't it? Is that 100?
I think that's 100.
Wow,
I think it was SS and 3 collective 100s for the team.
That's so stupid. Yeah, I think that was really easy. But I mean, okay, so you like objectively right. USA did they just did not do well in Hard Rock 2, and that is kind of the difference maker, Matt, because South Korea and Poland got 1 and 2 on Hard Rock 2, and USA finished 500 or 600k behind both of them on that map. And if you look at the scores overall, I'm pretty sure that's enough to just do it because USA got number 1 on Nomad 2, number 1 on Nomad 3, number 1 on Nomad 4, number 3 above South Korea and Poland on Hidden 1, number 3 barely behind Poland and ahead of South Korea on Hidden 2. You look at all these scores, it's literally Hard Rock 2 is the difference maker.
One thing that is really interesting about Hard Rock 2, though, in run 1, Vaxe got 894k. In run 2, he got 500k. And the team score improved actually by about 53k. So they subbed out Bashiman and put in Kama on that map, and their team score, despite Kama getting 760k compared to about 500k from Bashi, still only went up by 50k because variance on CS 6.5. It's just hard to be consistent at that. So while personally I think Decaden is still the right choice for this roster, I'm not sure how much of a difference it would have made on Hard Rock 2 in particular, just because of the variance that ended up happening. I'm not disagreeing that it's right to put him in, but I don't know if it would have made a difference, unfortunately. That said, there were some other maps that the USA players had really, really good things on. Bashi full comboing Hidden 1 and Hidden 2 for this team, keeping them both at number 3 on both of those maps. And some other really good scores from the Phil players on some of the DT pool. So it was an interesting quals for United States. It was an interesting qualifiers for United States. The very first year that they are not number 1. We'll see how much of a motivating factor that is going into the rest of the tournament, because I think for a team that has been number 1 for 5 years in a row, anything less than number 1 is failure, and those kinds of expectations are huge to put on one team's shoulders, especially with 5 new players. It's very high expectations. Okay. On to seed number 2 is Poland. Actually, a pretty big gap both in percent max and average score compared to USA. About 70K average score higher and little less than 0.2 max sum higher for Poland. And they are very, very close to South Korea in both of those metrics as well. Top 2 this year are really, really competitive with each other.
They had the best 2 players in qualifiers were on these 2 teams, and it's, I mean, and then like it goes a little ways to 3rd and 4th, but like Malashevsky and worst HR player were both just dominant in qualifiers, and that's Malashevsky obviously has been the best player on Poland for a couple of years now, and same thing here this year. He's just kind of puts that team like anywhere they need help, he puts them on his back, and their team is already good to begin with. So you put a player that's been top 2 tournament player in the world for the last year and a half on a team, and it's going to make them good when they have a lot of skillful players on that team to begin with. I don't think it's a surprise, right? There's nobody that's like, oh my God, Poland got 2, because they've got a really good team, and then they have a really good player. And he's probably, you got to think that Malashevsky is like the best, like first 3-4 rounds player in the world, right? You just give him maps and he just FCs them.
He played 22 maps, every map in qualifiers. Averaged 900K normalized, and averaged 99.48% AC.
It's dumb.
Like 99.5 AC, 900K average normalized. That's not even with mod multipliers. Is silly.
Yeah. I mean, this team just overall is super flexible and we're really well rounded on this. The lowest they got on any score was 7th, which I believe was on the no mod 4. But like outside of that, this team did not get any lower than 7th, and multiple times got top 3, top 2, number 1 on a couple maps. They were just generally so flexible. Obviously, that comes with having players like Malashevsky around. But this team is super good. I love how flexible this team is, and the fact that they were 0.011 max some percent away from overtaking South Korea is completely wild. They got higher average score than South Korea as well by about 2K, sorry.
Yeah, a little less than 2K. Which is that brings us to number 1 in the qualifiers, South Korea. This team popped off, right? Like this is I was the only I'm gonna say it. I was the only one who predicted South Korea number 1 on the panel. I'll take my check via PayPal. Thank you. Number 1 on Nomad 1, number 2 overall on Nomad 3, number 2 overall on Nomad 4. Just ridiculously good scores. Number 4 on both hiddens for South Korea. Number 2 on Hard Rock 1. Number 1 on Hard Rock 2. So the best Hard Rock team overall in the tournament based on qualifiers. And you don't normally think of South Korea as a speed team, but they were number 2 on DT2, only behind Poland. Number 3 on DT3, only behind Russia and Poland, and still got 4.3 million team score on the DT1. So this is a team that can do it all and can do it all really well, unless you give them 200 BPM death streams. That's the only thing they're not very good at. That's the only map.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you were to look at the individual stats, Forum was far and away the best player on this team, very close to rivaling, or they're basically rivaling, but very, very close to cutting even with Malashevsky. He was number 2 in the overall player leaderboards, and cool little fun small fact, he was number 1 individually on both the hidden maps for South Korea. So still pretty damn cool fact. Safe to say worst HR player is still one of the kings, especially considering that the next lowest team member overall in the qualifiers was Karcher at number 10, which is still really impressive because this is individual play scores of the entire World Cup, so still getting number 10 for Karcher is still huge. But yeah, Forum still one of the superstar players of this team and was very close to evening out with Malashevsky. Actually, missing a higher average score by about nearly, I think, just over 400 score. 400 score flat.
Yeah.
Which is pretty wild. Yeah.
I think this South Korea is like probably in terms of just raw hype, the most hyped roster coming into this World Cup, right? Because USA, it's been a lot of question marks. Poland, it's like, okay, it's last year. Malashevsky's really good, blah, blah, blah. But South Korea, it's like, okay, this is their year. And to come out and take number 1 in qualifiers shows that they're here to play. And really just impressive performance, and I'm excited. I'm mostly just excited to see these teams actually playing matches too, because qualifiers versus an actual match are such a different environment, especially when you get to those late rounds in the semifinals and finals and onward. That, very cool to see them, cool to see a new #1 seed for the first time since they instituted qualifiers. But want to see them playing in matches and see what it looks like when they stack up against the likes of Poland, the United States, and so on, in the actual tournament proper, which I think is something we're going to start talking about here, because I don't know that we have a lot more to say about these qualifiers.
Yeah, no, I think we're pretty much good. So that is going to do it for the qualifiers recap. Last thing I have to add about South Korea is I'm excited to see a better Amamiya Kokoro and a renewed Flying Tuna for this team. It's going to be very cool.
Yeah.
And with that, I think we can finally switch over to the round of 32 predictions. Don't know that we have time to do every match, so we've got a few picked out here that we are going to do, and we are going to start with China and Japan. We're also going to welcome on Miles and Dada to the stream. Full 5-man stream here for the round of 32 predictions. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, guys.
Hey, Miles, I love your
I
shades,
was
bro.
the only one who said Russia top 4, and you did not give me my flowers for that. Let me talk my shit again.
I was the only one who
Give
said
this
South
man a
Korea number 1.
true.
I talked my shit.
Hey, up top
I
to
get
you,
it.
up top to you. We
No.
got our hot takes across. We got it.
Exactly.
Get this man, get this man a true. I love
All
your
right.
shades, Miles. Good lord.
So,
Thanks.
China versus Japan. This is seed 16 versus seed 17. On paper, the closest matchup of the weekend. Japan with Varvalian coming back to the roster after quitting the game a couple years ago. And China with some new players to the roster, Mid-C, Survivor X4, and Z Numbers. Also, Rollpan coming back from Japan is pretty big. Let's just kind of talk about this matchup a little bit from the qualifiers, because there's a lot of maps where the teams are kind of split amongst each other in terms of how good the scores are. Like DT3, DT1, Hard Rock 2, Hidden 2, Nomad 3, Nomad 2 are all kind of split between these two teams in the qualifiers. So that only leaves us a few maps that are kind of one-sided. Nomad 1 and 4, Hidden 1, Hard Rock 1, and the DT2 that were a little one-sided in qualifiers looking at their runs individually.
Anybody want to talk anything? Or?
Mm.
Okay. Like, what's interesting about this Japan roster, I think, is that even though Varvalian is like kind of a part-time player now, he's not really like super active, at least when it comes to like grounding for big scores. He's still basically playing every map that he's played for the Japanese team for the last, I want to say, like 3 years. So, like, they're relying a lot on like this Vaxi type player, where they're like a great player that's maybe a little bit inactive, a little bit like their peak is a little bit behind them. So, and I was looking at his qualifier scores right now, and a lot of the consistency isn't there still for him. I feel like he's still pretty decent at stamina, still pretty decent at some speed, but he's still missing a lot of like not easy maps. But for example, he didn't FC DT1, I think, in either of his 2 tries. He had like pretty like a 600k run on Nomachu and some other like sort of inconsistent misses, and I think for a round of 32 pool especially, that sort of thing is like really hard to have on your team. Like, you're relying on a player and he's shit missing a lot. So I know that most of this China team is experienced in early stage pooling. They're experienced in this sort of like this star range, this difficulty range, where they can. I do believe them to be more consistent overall than this Japan team, but I think that Japan has a higher 100% score. Like, if they're really good that weekend, they can maybe take it. But I think like China is just more consistent. It's a safer bet for anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one thing that I really like about this China roster that you mentioned actually about Italy is they're able to run this kind of roster style where you have David Q, Crystal, Milk Tea, and Karumi, and you can basically run 2 or 3 of them on any map, and then the rest of the players just fill in where they're most valuable. And when you have 4 superstar players like that, like I think they're going to be really good, especially on this early stage pool.
Yeah, I have to completely agree. Yeah, just exactly what you said. Trying to just have multiple super flexible kind of all-star rosters, whereas Japan have a little bit less. You know, Valvalion and Tichi potentially are going to be more of the super flexible players. But yeah, outside of that, it's all-roundedness definitely goes to China for sure.
Yeah.
Honestly, one thing I saw in chat, Listia saying, if this were later in the tournament, I'd be leaning a lot more towards Japan. I actually kind of agree with that. I think, at least in this stage, it's going to be a lot of relying on players like Concon to be performing on a lot of maps. And also, I think one big question mark is Rollpan going to be as big of a factor as he used to be? I think Dada said it well. If this Japan team is performing at 100%, they can easily bring this match a lot further. But I think on paper, you have to favor China a little bit because of the consistency.
One player we haven't talked about yet all that much is Tichi. Kind of mentioned in passing, but Tichi actually played 22 out of 22 maps for Japan. Varvalion only played 19. So this is really kind of the all-rounder that they're relying on this year. Varvalion coming back is definitely a big deal, but Tichi is the player who is in for literally every map in the qualifiers. Rollpan as well only played 11 maps in the qualifiers, so he's only in for half of the map pool. It's really the Tichi and Varvalion duo for Japan that is going to be really impactful. And the skill cap for that duo is really high, but the consistency is somewhat questionable. Tichi top scored Nomad 3 for Japan both times in both of their runs, but both runs were also really close up against China's. And had the best score on Nomad 1 both times, but China's way, way better at the Nomad aim consistency. I think a lot of this match is going to come down to what we were talking about before, consistency and kind of the ability of the core roster to not need substitutes for this team. And unfortunately for TT Varvalion, there aren't really other core members of this roster. Like, those are the 2 who are playing every map. So you have to rely on them all throughout, and it's going to be a little bit tougher for Japan to win based off of that. That said, I do think the skill sets of these teams are different enough that we could still probably get a tiebreaker in this matchup. And I think on my pick'ems, I actually have China winning 5-4 in tiebreaker, because if it does go to tiebreaker, it's very China favored. But Japan, the much better speed team, and there is more speed in this pool than there was in the qualifiers pool. Not actually talking about DT1, but like there's Nomad 2, DT2, DT3 are both relatively speedy maps, whereas it was kind of just the DT2 in the qualifiers. So I think that's going to be much better for Japan on this pool than just looking at the scores from the qualifiers pool. So I give them a couple extra points because of that, and I think that is enough to bring it to a pretty close match.
Skill set wise, I think Japan can win some aim picks against this China roster. Maybe like some Nomad 1, some Hidden 2 action from them. Probably going to be some decent picks for them.
Okay.
Miles? Is Miles gone again? I think he was in the
No,
middle
he
of talking.
froze at a great flame.
Oh,
He
no.
froze at a
My
great
God,
flame.
dude.
Okay, there he is.
I hate
as soon as he
my
speaks.
goddamn internet, man. Okay, am I back? Hello.
You're back, Miles.
Okay, I was
You're good.
saying I think Japan is gonna like to pick aim in this matchup. I think like an NM1, HD2, HR1 angle, which I know sounds weird to say because Hidden 2 is not the area hidden in this pool. Just a note for people who do not know. Dada laughing maniacally. Me as well, you just can't see it. And otherwise, China probably going to go for some tapping, which is something that I'm not really used to saying about China rosters, but I think this year they're pretty good at that. I think some of their newcomers very good at tapping. And then also the classic China gimmick going to be pretty strong here, I think, but Japan also quite the strong gimmick team with players like Autolean on the team for that. So definitely, yeah, a match that could go to tiebreaker. Probably highest potential for TB this week, in my opinion, but we're going to go to some other matches that are interesting as well later on. So
yeah, I think we're all agreement. Pretty close match, but China favored slightly on this pool and with the star rating range. So good luck to Japan. Good luck to China in the matchup. And let's move on to the next matchup, which I forget and I don't have the doc open. So Kay, switch to the next matchup.
Next
is
matchup
time.
is Indonesia
Sure, it's next
Ukraine.
match.
If we kept that one.
We all picked the same team. That's a Twitter screenshot.
It's Indochina versus Ukraine.
Okay, there you go.
Yucatan.
There we go. All right. So yeah, Indonesia with Ro, Dito, Hakukuri, Lifeline, Nazna, Amamiya, Rosemi, the just VTuber team,
VTuber
Skydiver,
team.
and that noob guy. Ukraine with Magnata, Dench, OQ, Roman, Raf GPO. I don't know how to pronounce that one. Tapak and Uneval. This is 9 versus 24, so on paper it doesn't actually look all that close. But you're underestimating Ukraine if you think this matchup is not going to be close.
The scene hasn't changed for the stream. The scene hasn't changed for the stream.
Oh,
no,
So,
can we
brother.
get the scene different on the stream, please? That would be great.
I just want to mention real quick that this was 10-1 Indonesian qualifiers. 11 maps is a moderately decent sample size. I do think the easier pool in round of 32 compared to qualifiers does benefit Ukraine. But I think Indonesia is just the better team. Like, they just have better players. I don't really know how else to put it. That doesn't sound like Flame, but that's just how it is. Like, they have higher skill cap and they have players who are really consistent in like early and mid rounds as well. Like, it's pretty difficult for Ukraine to win this, but they will have to. If they are like at their absolute best, they can make this a very competitive match. But I think Indonesia wins this like 8 times out of 10, 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
I think just real quick, I think Raf GPO might have been having like computer issues or something because we all remember how good he was last year. He played 5 maps out of 22 in qualifiers this year. Played Hard Rock 2 once in their second run and played DT1, DT3 twice. So I don't know what was going on there, but one of their best players from last year played like 3 maps that counted out of 11. So I think if they have RAF GPO, whatever went on there sorted, I think they're going to be able to do better in this matchup. And because it's lower star rating, I think the D rankers on the Ukraine team will probably be better.
I'd say that, but like, I'm usually the one to bring all the hopium for teams like Ukraine, but against a team like Indonesia, it's just really rough because Indonesia, very consistent roster. I feel like these guys are especially good on the early stage pool. And Ukraine, they can't really abuse a skill set advantage against this team, I think. So it's just going to have to be like, show up. You need to have your strengths in check. You need to convert on your FCs that you have in practice in the match. And I think that's how Ukraine can get some points on the board. I have them winning a few points on my pick'em, but this is just logistically speaking a really tough matchup for Ukraine.
Yeah, I think I still agree. I think it's still going to be an Indonesia win, but I think the matchup is actually going to be pretty close. Like, I think I have this 5-3 for Ukraine because look at DT2. Both of Ukraine's runs were above 3 mil, and Indonesia has huge variance on the DT2 from 3.1 down to 2.3 million on their first run, which is pretty rough in a pool that does have more of that skill set. And a lot of the maps that were quote unquote won by Ukraine in qualifiers were still relatively close. If you're looking at average score, for example, the hidden one where Ukraine is solidly in the middle of both of Indonesia's runs, the Hard Rock 2 where they have the potential to win if Indonesia low rolls, which is very likely on a lower star rating pool, right? You talk about consistency. Well, there's pretty high variance for a lot of Indonesia's scores, like greater than 500k difference between their 2 runs. So I think on a lower star rating pool, Ukraine absolutely has some upset potential here.
They did take China to tiebreaker last year. You have to remember this. Round of 32, Ukraine.
Not only China, but
Who
China
else?
with the forbidden technique.
Oh, true,
yeah.
dude.
Yeah.
China with
forbidden one.
Thea to tiebreaker.
The
Like,
unspeakable.
I did say, like, logistically this is hard, but this Ukraine team, they've got some magic, and I love me some magic in OC tournaments, man.
Listen, all I'm gonna say is I'm a full believer in Indonesia this year. I think you guys were having them way too low on the prediction stream.
Well,
and
clearly because they're seed 9. So yeah.
Yeah, no, their roster is actually sick.
Really good.
Their roster is actually stupid sick. They have all their best players. No more Skydiver just not showing up. No more Vino shaking out of the wazoo. It's like they have all of their like super good players. They're all here. They're all ready to play. So I honestly think this will be like a 5-1, 5-2 at most for Indonesia. I'm a full believer in them, and I'm excited to see what they'll do later on in the tourney. I think Ukraine, on like a very, very good day and with like super RNG, they can maybe take this match, but that's man,
Yeah.
Indonesia even has a Free Machu that's literally an Indonesian song. I
True.
don't know what you can
True.
say.
Yeah, to be clear, if this were higher star rating pool, if this were like quarters or semis, I give this to Indonesia 5-0 like every time. I only think it's going to be close because it's round of 32, and Ukraine has some pretty consistent bracket stage players. But Indonesia is clearly the better overall team here, and I still think they're going to win.
Yeah, I think everything you guys have said, I do agree with. Indonesia just overall just have so much more experience. They have so much more experienced tournament players out there. Ukraine do have some great tournament players. We've already mentioned it. RevGPO, Roman, Magnetic Gamer, Dench. I think those players are staple players for this Ukrainian team. They have more than enough potential to do good and get some great points. But I think if they were against other teams, I would have maybe pitted them higher. But considering you're against a team like Indo, who are extremely experienced, several really well-known tournament players who have played for a very long time, I think this low star rating pool is not going to be an issue for them. I think Indonesia are going to be very, very good on this. Of course, there's always a chance. Ukraine, as you said last year, took China TV with the forbidden method. There's always a chance, but I think on paper, Indonesia definitely the major favorites to win this match for sure.
Okay, let's move on to our next matchup then. We have all 5 on the panel voting for Indonesia. We're going to go on to Hong Kong versus Finland. This is seed 13 versus seed 20. And I think a big difference in how these teams kind of operate on the whole, right? You have a Hong Kong team that is historically really good at aim, really good at tech, really good at hard rock and reading, and a Finland team which usually is really good on speed and good on stamina mechanics, with some really good reading players on the team as well, including players like Kalanlu this year. So I think this is going to be an interesting matchup between the two, especially because I think a lot of the expectations for these two teams were kind of flipped a little bit. Finland was really consistent on Nomad 2 in qualifiers, but Hong Kong popped off and beat them by 500k. There's very, very close scores between these two teams. If you look at both of their runs at the same time, there's tons and tons of maps throughout the pool where Finland has runs in between Hong Kong's runs, despite Hong Kong being higher seeded by 7 places. And of course, Finland winning out on the reading pick and contesting a lot of the DT picks from Hong Kong during the qualifiers. So I think this is going to be another one of those good matches that is close, but probably still higher seed favored, even on the lower star rating pool.
Yeah, Hong Kong has the better players at the top end, right? Like, it's another one, like you said, it's the skill capped versus skill floor. I was a little it's interesting, like, no Suwagi on their team will make them, I think, demonstrably worse in late rounds, but I don't think it has as big of an effect in early rounds. This Finland team, I think, has definitely high hopes compared to what they traditionally, get maybe one win in losers bracket or something. I think they can definitely, win a couple rounds in losers this year. But I do still think Hong Kong wins this matchup. I also think it's like another one where you could see a tiebreaker. And there's a world where if Finland steals a point, they can run with it and win the match. With the players that, like you mentioned, like having some really strong early round players. But I don't know. It's hard to pick against Hong Kong in this particular matchup for me.
I'm pretty much on the same page. One thing I thought was really interesting that you actually mentioned was how Hong Kong, they lost some of their tapping players like RLSC, and I guess Suwagi might be in for some tapping. And they still did really well on tapping in qualifiers. They did pretty well on DT2 and the Nomad 2, which are things that, traditionally speaking, I would pick Finland to win against Hong Kong. And then you say the narrative was flipped for Finland as well, which is like also extremely interesting. This is just, I think this could play out just like a traditional early round dogfight where, like, yeah, it's probably going to lean towards Hong Kong on paper. I have Hong Kong on my pick'em winning like 5-3, but like Finland here, like they've got the talent for early stage. Like if they play consistently, if they FC the maps like they probably are doing in practice, these maps aren't too hard. They just convert and match. Like they could take it the distance. I think like definitely going to be an interesting one though.
All right, so every week we have one of these where I just have like a feeling in my gut, and it overrides any sort of rational thought. It overrides any sort of statistical evidence, and I just feel like here Finland is gonna get the best of Hong Kong because, like, from what I imagine Hong Kong's roster to be, like before this OWC even started, before they even selected their roster, and then seeing their roster now, like internally, I just had such disappointment. Like I was waiting for Tsuagi to be like that beast that he is, that we all know that he is from previous years, and I was waiting for their speed roster to be better. And here I am. I just look at a team that like it still has some elements, but like does it really have that good of a roster? Really? Meanwhile, Finland, I'm like, dude, there's finally a Finnish roster I can actually root for. There's finally a Finnish roster that's actually like good. Kalanlu, Chaduz, Freezed, Amasetic, Zeppe. Like, man, these guys are good. Like, and these people are experienced in early stage pooling. And round 32 is a lot about early stage pooling and consistency. And like, my gut just tells me Finland. Even though I know statistically Hong Kong is obviously the favorite, my gut just tells me Finland. Tori Litavatan.
You know
I
what?
love that out of you, Dada. I love that out of you.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna actually. I think I gotta switch my vote because if Dada's voting
Ooh.
Finland, if Dada's voting Finland, the gut feeling has got to be saying something. And the tournament placement that I'm most proud of, in my own tournament history, I got my ass smacked by Amasetic in grand finals. So root for the dude that beat you so that you can win in spirit, I guess, over Hong Kong. So yeah, these guys are really good at low star rating pools. They've all been D rankers at one point or another, and they've got some tricks up their sleeves. So fuck it, Finland.
I do heavily respect the room for Finland, and one thing I do definitely have to agree with is that, especially in this early stage, Finland have way more potential than any other stage to take down Hong Kong. But in my gut, I personally still think Hong Kong take it. I definitely respect it though. Finland, you are right, Dada. They have a really good roster. Finally, they've got a full-on great roster that you can really see doing a lot better in the mid to later kind of mid stage in this tournament. But in my head, I'm looking at these players and I'm thinking like they've got some staple kind of well-rounded players. Shin and MTY4 especially are going to be playing every single map. I'm 100% sure of that. And those guys do not cease to disappoint, did not cease to impress. Oh my god, I said that again. I did the thing again. But these guys are really good. I still think Finland are going to put up a fight, but I think Hong Kong win it. I'm going to say like 5-3 Hong Kong, maybe 5-4.
Yeah, like
Okay.
you're saying so much about Finland's like early round prowess, but like historically speaking, Hong Kong is like the funniest early round team. Like you remember all the stuff they did to France like 5 years ago?
I
Like
choose to ignore it in favor of Finland.
that's based. Based. Okay, based, but like
Based.
I'm a historian here. I'm a OC World Cup historian. I'm gonna stick with my gut, even though I am like I'll be happy to be proven wrong on this one, okay? I'll be happy to be.
Sometimes the statistics don't matter, and that's what Chile in 2021 taught me. Moving on to the next matchup.
Go next.
Go next.
Go next.
We're on to the next one. It's Romania versus Singapore time. Aaron, you start on this one. I'm gonna laugh for a little.
All right, we're gonna let Dio laugh for a while. So we have Romania fresh off their best placement ever last year, coming in and seeding 12th this year. Badu, Sylvian, Kamosiala, Eternum, Halpla, Blue Crease, Rosé, and Rolly. They dropped Nanoya this year, which probably a big deal. Dude played really well last year. Singapore on the other side, seating 21st with Tebi, Dawnwing, Demonical, Eagle, Emilia, just like Q-Stronaut and Yellow, which I think is that the entire, almost the same roster as last year. I don't know. They switched out like one person, maybe.
No Megamick.
Yeah, they had Megamick last year.
no
Who
Megamick.
replaced Megamick? Who's the new one on this year? Is it
Emilia. Emilia
Emilia?
replaced Megamick.
And Emilia's like, if he is playing and if he is trying, that dude is really good. Like it's easy to forget, especially for like newer people, like how good Emilia actually is. I remember watching him in Hippo Cup, just like destroying kids because he's a hidden main, and the hidden rule in Hippo Cup was so nuts for him. This is a sneaky good matchup, I think. Singapore never to be underestimated early rounds. And Romania with a couple of roster changes. Kamosiala coming back from the dead, right? We really haven't seen much of him in a long time. And Sylvian, who's the new player on the team as well. I think. I honestly, I just want to pick Singapore to win this. I don't harbor any ill will toward Romania. I think it would just be really cool to see Singapore win this matchup, because they have like a really strong just base like skill level. Not to say that Romania doesn't, but I just want to see Singapore win this, so I'm gonna pick them.
Just tell people that you hate Romanians and you want them dead. That's what's going on here. You guys underplaced them a lot in qualifiers, even though their qualifier seeding ended up being a little bit more akin to your placement as opposed to like what people were thinking. I think that you guys are still like on the Romania hate train like heavy. So like even though Singapore has me on the collab essentially, I have to go for Romania. Like just they're four. They're like normal 4-player lineup for most maps. Like Badu, Lucrece, Eternum, and either Raleigh, Raze, even Camo. Even though he's not really playing that well, I think in qualifiers he didn't have that good of a score. Like they're still like extremely good. So I'm gonna give the edge to Romania, and just as a balancing act for T1G here.
Yeah, I know I'm usually on like the Romania like doubter train. I'm usually the one underrating them, putting them in like 12 through 16 in qualifier, 13 through 16 actually. But this match, I don't really think it's it this time. Like Romania, like they have the players to convert on this early stage pool. Singapore losing one of their extremely strong, consistent all-rounders in mrekk. I just don't see it happening this year, even without Nanoya. Romania, they're gonna do the thing. They're gonna go in there. They're gonna get like 2 or 3 FCs per map and just win this one. I think pretty decisively, probably like 5-2 in my opinion. But still, Singapore, they've got it in them. Eagle 5324. That guy is like a prodigy. Like I haven't seen him play too many tournaments in the last year, but like if that guy is like popping off, like watch out for him.
Yeah, I think you guys have said a lot already, Dada and Mars, respectively, about Romania, and to be honest, I have to agree. I think one thing that I will slight about it is I think Singapore are going to make this a much closer fight than maybe some expect. I think Romania are still overall going to outshine just simply because of the fact that they've got so many stable all-rounded players that are going to just stay consistent on every single map. I still think Singapore have some great players, as you mentioned, Miles. Eagle that I'm looking out for. Amelia, if he, as T1G said, if he's gonna stay up to the potential that we saw him previously, that could be a great appearance from him. Demonical has always been a stable player, but outside of that, I just think overall Romania are going to be more consistent. So I still think Singapore are going to make it close though. I think Romania is probably going to take it 5-3, maybe 5-4 on TB, especially on TB. If it's TB, then Romania's they've done it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think this is a really like interesting matchup in that Romania is going to be banning reading against Singapore probably. They had a really good team score on the hidden one and beat out both of Singapore's scores. But Singapore also beat them on the Loyar map in the qualifiers, which is like one of the only maps, I think the only map where, or no, one of 2 maps where Singapore had a higher team score than Romania was the hidden 2. And then there was also the DT3, which doesn't really have a like counterpart this week because it was like high AR reading alt style 200 BPM stuff, which is not really in the pool this week. So it's kind of this weird area where usually Romania has Badu, you're going to ban reading. I think it's going to be Romania banning the reading map and trying to abuse Singapore on any like aim mechanics that they can, because Romania was number 3 overall on the DT1. They had a really good run on that map. And abusing Singapore on hard rock really hard, which can also extend to the free mod. Like Romania has really good hidden players as well. Obviously they got better runs both times on the hidden one this weekend than Singapore. So I think it's probably going to end up being Romania. I do think Singapore has the ability to take some points, for example, on tech maps and other slightly gimmicky picks. They can maybe RNG some maps out of Romania on some of the lower star rating mechanics picks as well. They've got a lot of really good tournament players. Demonical and Tebi in particular were really big performers for them during the qualifiers, and I think if they do win, it's going to be off the back of them. But I still have Romania because I was like the one Romania believer on the podcast before, so I'm going to stick with Romania. On to the next one. On to the next one. It is oh, the scene is dead.
Uh-oh.
It's
Wait.
nobody.
There we go.
Oh,
France
France
versus
and Brazil.
Brazil.
Oh.
France versus Brazil. 15 versus 18. This is gonna be pretty close, I think, but very good rosters for both of the teams and very, very close qualifiers results for both of these teams as well.
All right, let's just. I want to hear Dada. We just gotta go
Okay.
Dada because
Okay,
he's the
sure.
only person who's actually heard of half this fucking Brazil roster. So like,
I know
I've heard of
the
these
Brazil
people.
roster in its entirety. I know that Korean, he's good. He's really good, but he's qualified for mrekk Cup. He's done relatively well recently. He hasn't had the best of qualifier runs. I believe he wasn't really on the top echelon like I expected him to be. But Defons is still really good. Zubs is still really good, and we have like some sort of revelations like the fake Defons. I'm just gonna call him fake Defons. Larumin is also pretty good, and yeah, it's a solid roster. The thing that actually like made me very like weirded out in this qualifier is that in theory you have a France roster that's insane, right? Just looking at the names, you have Justman, aka Mbappe. You have Flavin, a person who's literally been so good that they've banned him for.
he's been he got it. So of course the iceberg on Flavin is that he was in-def tourney ban, and he's the reason that the permanent tourney ban was changed to indefinite. He is literally the reason for that change. And this is apparently why France wanted him back so badly, was he could play OWC. Little did we know.
They have Ikoro. Ikoro is literally reading Jesus, and
He's
he's
also
like
the only one not on the collab right now. So,
Yeah, I guess
instantly
he just
minus
hates
points to France.
he hates soccer, I guess, or football. They have Musty, which is one of the biggest OWC veterans in this whole tournament. I believe it's Musty and Jien being tied for the most OWCs ever played. Like, this roster is insane. How did they get 15th? And then you look at their scores, and it's like, oh, maybe the hype really wasn't justified? Like, what happened here? Why are they not as good as we thought they would be?
I mean, oh, sorry, go on.
No, go
Carry on.
ahead.
No, I was going to say, because considering this map was quite a bit more difficult, and of course, skill cap might be a question mark here for France, but comparing that to early stage, I think France are definitely going to be a lot better. I don't know if they underperformed in qualifiers, honestly. I personally thought this team was going to be placed a lot higher. But if we were to look at the differences in the qualifying map pools towards this map pool coming up, I think France is generally going to be a lot more consistent. So yeah, in my eyes, I think despite a little unfortunate struggle compared to how good this team is on paper, I still think France are going to take it overall.
Okay. So I have to be a homer. First of all, I have to like rep the Brazilian nation. So I'm gonna pick Brazil. But if France wins, which I fully expect them to win, I'm just picking Brazil because right? But even if France does win, I want to either see them winning convincingly or just losing outright, because I don't want this team to be still that team who's like, oh, these names are so good. These like, look, this is the year France is finally gonna do something, and then like still end up disappointing again, because that's France basically every year. If Russia, people have this whole stigma that they can't get past semifinals, then France is that times 12. Like, France is that for quarterfinals or for round of 16, depending on the year. Like, this team has so much potential. I want to see them stomping this match or them losing outright because I don't want to be invested.
That's the football fan in you talking, Dada. I know it. That's the Baltimore Ravens fan in Dada coming out. He is
Oh
sick
my
and tired
God.
of all these close games. He wants a convincing
I mean,
win,
they
or
won
he
like
doesn't want it at all.
38-6. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, but that was like an anomaly. They don't do
Oh
that
my
against
God.
anyone other than apparently the Lions
He
last
just
week.
wants vindication, man. He just wants the
Okay, yep.
vindication.
Okay, okay. American football off topic. I think like Brazil has a path in this match. I think they have a really solid core. I think like when you can have Korean, both the Defons and Zubs in for a map, I think they could probably win that map. But I think this matchup is really, I think, going to be one on the mechanics because France has of late been a really good mechanics team. But I'm going to be honest, there's not really much mechanics you can really abuse in a round of 32 pool, but they're going to pick it anyway. So Brazil, they're going to be matching up with them on Hard Rock, say rosters like Hifkill, Mbappe, maybe Flavin +1 up against Korean, both Defons and +1 on Hard Rock. Like, I think that's going to be, I think, a big point of contention. I think the free mods are going to be picked in this matchup. And, you know, I've been saying it about a lot of teams in this cast so far, but it's just one of those things where on a good day, Brazil has a path. If they don't FC, they don't win the match. Like, it'll be one of those. So, like, obviously you favor the higher seeded team here, but, like, the route is there. It's round of 32. France is kind of a notoriously, like, not very good early stage team. Like, history's on the side of Brazil here, but I'm still going to vote France.
Yeah, it's France. I think it's just they have really solid players across the board, and I don't know. It's hard to pick against France early round. Like Donna said, like I definitely want to see what they're actually capable of as it gets later. Want to see if they're capable of outperforming their seed and all that. But I think for right now, they're just simply the better team than this Brazil roster. Brazil will take a couple points on the skill sets that are favored to them, but France will win in the end. It's like 5-3 or something.
There's always got to be a couple upsets in round of 32. There's always got to be a couple of them. And the Brazil team is another team filled with D rankers who are OP on low star rating pools and who outperformed France in quarterfinals on most of the gimmicky maps in the pool. Both of their DT3 scores were better than both of Brazil's DT3 scores. They match up really well on the Hard Rock 1, which was not a typical Hard Rock 1. There was a lot of different skill sets in that map. If they high roll, still beat out France on the Hard Rock 2. And they won Nomad 3, Nomad 4 head-to-head versus France in qualifiers and had the better Nomad 2 score if they high roll it. So this is a team that has the ability to be good on tapping, to beat France on tapping on a good day, and generally beats France on anything gimmick that isn't hidden on their best days. And I think this hidden pool is actually pretty good for Brazil because guess what? In qualifiers, the hidden one was like CS 4.5 alt tech hybrid, really hard stuff, right? And the hidden 2 was awkward aim, but it was low AR. So still hard if you're not a hidden player. This week, the hidden 2 is awkward aim again, but it's only AR9. And all of the really gimmicky hidden stuff is all focused into one map. So Brazil can just ban that out and then coin flip the hidden 2 on a map that is AR9 awkward aim instead of AR8 awkward aim. And lower star rating at that. Like, it's about the same star rating as the AR8 from qualifiers. So I think there's big upset potential for Brazil in this match. That said, I think if both teams play how they did in qualifiers, France probably wins. But, you know, I got to go for the lower percentage upset because there's always got to be a couple in round of 32. There's never not there's always an upset. There's always an upset or two in round of 32 every year in OWC. And predicting with the seeding is boring. So that's my take. This is less like analysis based because if I'm going based off of actual qualifier results, I'm giving it to France. But there's always a couple upsets, and this is one with the potential for it. So I'm gonna capitalize on the potential.
Speaking of upsets, our
There
next
was-
match.
There was only one last year. Sorry. Go on.
I'm
There's
trying
always
to
at
remember
least
what that
one.
is,
There's
too.
always at least one. That's all. Okay, on to the next one. Seed 14 versus Seed 19, and the last match we're going to talk about because this has gone on quite a long
It's
time. No,
2 hours.
a little about 2 hours,
Yeah.
but we did start
This
10
is
minutes late.
spicy. This is a spicy one, though.
Italy versus New Zealand, the Roman Emperor collab versus the what is that? Club Penguin collab?
It's Club
Penguins,
Penguins.
the
It's Club
Puffles.
Penguins. The
Club Penguin
Puffles.
collab. Okay. Who is stronger, the entire Roman Empire or Club Penguin? Let's see.
Club Penguin.
Club Penguin.
I am so New Zealand pilled for literally no reason other than that I'm just like think that they're good. I have no like objective reasoning for being
Kinda
New Zealand
shaking his
pilled.
head.
And I can get flamed. I don't care. I'm just picking New Zealand. I think this is the year that they like figure out how to win a winners bracket match and like get into the bracket, win a winners bracket match. Like they just have solid players, and I think they're really motivated to get a win. From what I've heard. I mean, not to say Italy isn't, I guess, but I just would like to see. I think New Zealand is capable of it. They've got some high skill cap, like with Zoomer, etc. They've got some solid skill floor players, and I'm also basing this on the fact that I don't know. I wish I knew more about Italy. There's like some players that I'm familiar with and some players I'm not. Obviously, you know, your Ryuzaki's, your Arge, your Kirochi's very, very, very strong. But I think it's an early. I think it's an early round pool, round of 32. Anything happens. Dio said, you know, there's always an upset or two in the early rounds, and I'm kind of just gonna say this is gonna be a one that I want to see the upset happen here. I think it'd be cool to see New Zealand get a dub.
Which one is Arch?
Chihuahua.
Chihuahua. Yeah.
I saw Chihuahua in the performance scores, and I saw the Italy flag, and I thought it was Mexico because of the name.
Nope. That's funny.
Dog.
San
that's true.
Marino.
Chihuahua is a type of dog.
City in Mexico. Okay, I really don't know what to think of this match. It's just so tough on paper because I think a lot of their skill sets overlap. I think especially in the Hard Rock. I think that's something that both teams are going to be really scared to pick into each other. I think Italy definitely has an advantage on tech. That's like maybe the one thing I'm sure about in this match. I would favor Italy on gimmick because I don't know any New Zealander gimmick players, but like Italy doesn't really like gimmick that much either. So I don't really know. I think a lot of it's going to come down to the skill sets that they're both good at, like aim, hard rock, speed. A lot of that going to be picked in this match. I genuinely don't know who to pick. I think my pick'em's like tiebreaker towards Italy, but then the guy I'm collaborating my pick'ems with said tiebreaker towards New Zealand too. So, screw it, Italy. I'll say Italy. I know more of their players, but New Zealand, surprising roster. I think definitely one of the big surprises of this year, and I'm excited to see how they play against a team like Italy because I think this is really evenly matched. Maybe the best matchup we have this week stylistically.
Okay, so
Dada when talking. Okay. So
Dada when
listen,
talking.
listen, right? You see this Italy roster; they have such good players, and then they have like some players that we don't know that they're like 4K and are like near the bottom of the performance rankings, you know. But they have sick names like Karia Wakana, and
freaking
you see New Zealand. You see New Zealand.
No,
and
she's based, Aaron.
They have Zoomer, right? Zoomer's the famous one. They have Kim Soo-hye. I forgot who who that name is originally. Is that
Oh, they changed their name again. They're now Kyujin, but it's Violet, aka it's going down.
okay? But they were like their best player in New Zealand. I believe they played
They're-
22 out of 22, and they outperformed Zoomer, which is like the big player in New Zealand. The people commonly flock to Zoomer as their like big guy, and besides Zoomer and Kim Soo-hye, they also had Saiku,
Saiku.
and that guy is also pretty good. But I feel like after that, it just falls off a cliff. Like I genuinely feel like this New Zealand roster has a big fourth man problem, and Italy doesn't really. Like they have Shadow Modico on basically every map. They have Kurochi on basically every map that isn't hidden. They have Arge. They have Yuzaki. They have BGM. Like, I just think Italy just has more to pick, and they have more players to cycle through. New Zealand has to rely on 3 players, and the others just have to like kind of hope. So I'm going Italy 5-2. That's my honest prediction here. I think Italy outclasses New Zealand.
I mean, from what Dada said, I kind of agree with basically everything you said. Zuma, King Suhei, and Saikyu are going to be the three kind of main people you look for in New Zealand, but when you compare it to Italy, not only can they fight evenly on New Zealand's main core strength that you look for here, but overall in terms of flexibility, particularly in the no mod, Italy are just outshining straight overall. This team has a solid four kind of level 4 players that they can capitalize off of on most maps, whereas New Zealand has a very severe 4th player syndrome. Not even that though. Like there are some maps that not all 3 of these star New Zealand players will be playing. So yeah, I'm predicting Italy here. I hope New Zealand prove me wrong, and I hope they put up a good fight. But literally everything that Dada said, I completely agree with. Italy 5-2, 5-1. I'm saying here.
So I was actually gonna say the opposite of what Miles said, that like Hard Rock is the only place where they have overlapping skill sets, and pretty much everywhere else when you look at the qualifiers pool, it's both of one team's scores above both of the other team's runs on every qualifiers map. Like Nomad 1 is Italy Italy, then New Zealand New Zealand. Nomad 2 is New Zealand New Zealand, and then Italy Italy. And it's like 2 and 15 on the map for Italy versus 51 and 52 for New Zealand on Nomad 1, or 5 and 10 for New Zealand on Nomad 2 versus 39 and 46 for Italy. And that kind of trend continues throughout the Nomad pool, with Nomad 3 and Nomad 4 being very Italy favored, and then Hidden 1 being very New Zealand favored over both of Italy's runs. Not that either of the teams were actually particularly strong on that map, but they were still New Zealand favored. Finally, on AR8, we get, and on the Hard Rock pool, we get some mixes with Italy on the borders and New Zealand in the middle for both Hidden 2 and Hard Rock 1, and New Zealand on the borders and Italy in the middle for Hard Rock 2. So I think the teams are probably going to end up avoiding the Hard Rock pool a little bit. But there's then the DT pool also with DT1. Italy has the number 2 run on the map and the number 17 run versus 25 and 62 for New Zealand. And then both of New Zealand's scores on DT2 are better than both of Italy's on DT2. This is like the most lopsided pick ban phase I've ever seen in my life, with it just being teams winning their own picks back and forth. New Zealand picking tapping, Italy picking aim, and because there are just straight up more speed maps in this pool than in the qualifiers pool, I think New Zealand will get enough points to bring it to tiebreaker. But when it gets there, Italy's just better on tiebreaker. So I think this is a tiebreaker match because the teams are just completely dichotomous skill sets, good at completely different things. And when you get a mixed skill set map as the tiebreaker, yes, it's streamy consistency, but like the Italy members can play 200 BPM burst in streams. They just can't play death streams, right? So I'm going to go Italy in tiebreaker. I think just because these teams are going to be 0 overlapping skill sets during the pick ban phase, just banning and picking completely different skill sets from each other.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But the way I'll respond to you saying the completely opposite thing is I will cite round of 32, and I will cite that the map pool is a lot different stylistically than the qualifiers pool. So you can't really just go off of that. So, but otherwise, yeah, I'll retract what I say. I think speed, yeah, definitely going to go towards New Zealand though.
Yeah, and that's most of the reason why I'm thinking that this goes the way it does, because Nomad 2 tapping in qualifiers, DT2 tapping in qualifiers were both super New Zealand favored. Nomad 2 is obviously not a death stream map anymore. It's like a burst speed map with late tech, but that's still going to be very New Zealand favored. There's other tapping maps in the DT pool, DT2, DT3, that are going to be really New Zealand favored. And there is the like flow aim stream map in free mod that is still actually probably going to be New Zealand favored, because players like Saikyu, for example, are really, really good at flow aim streams, not necessarily at stuff like alt. And that's going to be much better for New Zealand than I think it will be for Italy. Obviously, I think that map's going to be a lot closer, but I think it's still going to be a New Zealand point. And then, yeah, I would usually say that like doing well on Nomad 1 in qualifiers doesn't mean you do well on Nomad 1 in this pool, but Italy also got the number 2 score on DT1, which shows they can play speed aim, right? So I think they'll have not much trouble with the higher BPM and awkward aim of Nomad 1 this time around, and same for the DT1, of course, right? If they can play both the Nomad 1 and DT1 from qualifiers, they're not going to have too much trouble with BPMs that are in the middle of that. That said, I think Hard Rock 1's going to be interesting because you get like Hard Rock aim consistency, but also flow aim streams in that map, which is something that both of these teams have overlapping skill sets on. So I think some of it might come down to that, and maybe we don't get a tiebreaker because of that. But I think if the teams avoid Hard Rock, it's probably a tiebreaker. And that said, I think we're good to go. It is 2 hours past the start time, and that is going to be it for us. So that is it for the round of 32 predictions. The first match starts at 2 UTC tonight, which is in about 4 hours, like 3 minutes and 55 or 3 hours and 55 minutes from now. So check that out at Osu Live. If you were here during the MGC segments, the first match for that is 18 UTC tomorrow on Saturday. That is going to be Henry versus Vaxe, with the winner facing off against Malashevsky. Thank you to everyone who was watching. Thank you to everyone on the panel. Thank you to Kay for being operator for this episode, because Kevo is not here today. And we will see you all next weekend for round of 32 recap in OWC and round of 16 predictions, where we will have even more time to go over more matches in the round of 16. See you all next weekend.
Bye-bye.
See ya.